I did good.
Pan-Nose and teriyaki, I see how.
You guys play Cutthroat or no?
Okay, we're all set. We are live.
Oh, I played that. That's fun.
There he is.
I made it.
We are live.
Yep.
We're live.
Okay, well, welcome to today's meeting. So it's being recorded and live streamed. So I will call the meeting to order. Maria, roll call.
Yes, ma'am. Sherry Boyer,
Yes, I am here.
James Ellis is absent. Stephen Ehrman,
Here.
Madeline Fleury here. Archie McKee is absent. Daniel Mills
Here.
and Nate Manette.
Here.
Also present, Jeremy Evans, Maria Bourgeois, and Paul Ellis.
Okay, everyone has seen the agenda. So I need a motion to accept the agenda as is, or if anybody needs to add anything, speak now or forever.
I'll move.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Oh,
Aye.
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 All right. So moved. There's no public, any public comment? There's no public here, right? Nope. Okay. Everyone's had a chance to look at the previous meeting minutes because they're right in our packets. I will need a motion, oh, they're from October 19th. I'll need a motion to accept.
I'll make a
Oh.
motion.
We need a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
In case you guys need Wi-Fi, if you need the Wi-Fi.
So moved. Committee reports. Does anybody have any updates? Governance?
Governance, we're going to try and get a meeting together next week to go over the employee evaluation process. If we can get committee members there. So that's all I have to say about
Okay. Anyone else?
On the agenda, talk about this space.
Okay.
Finally had my long-awaited call with the auditor, and we've figured out how we're going to resolve some of the open issues, and
Ready to hear?
we're moving forward. Very excited about having things for once, all for the organization. So
Awesome.
we used to be once a year we would know where we stood financially, and my goal has been every month you will know exactly where we stand financially. So good call with the auditor. So and I think we're making enough improvements that we might be able to even speed up the process of getting them in and getting them out and giving us a little bit more time for our filings that we have to do. So.
Very good. Thank you. Any other committee reports?
Yes, on economic development, our committee, which is Nate, Nate and Jim Ellis and myself, met on the 3rd, and we did what we said to the board that we would do. We reviewed our strategy of how to have offices in each of the core communities of the county, basically, which is the larger communities. Malone as our headquarters, Saranac Lake, and Tupper Lake. And we reviewed the strategy that the board had already signed off on. We did a little bit of a roundy because we had earlier laid out criteria that we should use in evaluating what we should do, what we should do for leasing space, and we basically came to the same conclusion that we had recommended to the board earlier, and the board had signed off on. And Jeremy sent a very good memo to everyone detailing that. The core, kind of cutting to the chase, is that we will have a headquarters. We recommend a headquarters outside of the county building in Malone. We maintain a presence in Tupper Lake for now. We have a small office there, which works. Jim Ellis said that he's comfortable as rep from that community, that we could maintain relatively low-key space, maybe add a carry at some point in the future there. And we have a carry basically existing in Saranac Lake, which is about to relocate once the lofts project is done. So we're well along. The real question is whether we want to move into what the board is, what the committee is recommending now to the board of space in the new project, Harrison Space on the main street in Malone. And in the process of doing all this, we went through a lot of material that was provided by Jeremy and Paul on alternative costs. And we did consider whether it would make sense to approach the village to be in their space, possibly on the second floor, where there is available space. But it turns out that being on the second floor without an elevator, it really doesn't meet one of our core criteria of making sure that the space is accessible to everyone, regardless of their physical ability to climb stairs. So there's no elevator there, so it's all stairs. So that's that basically is a non-starter for us. And we looked at other alternatives in Malone, and we realized if we want to lease space, which we do, rather than purchase, Harrison Place is the spot we should consider, and it is on the agenda for with a resolution that we can consider later on the IDA agenda, resolution 2023-20, and we can get into further discussion as a board on it at that point in time.
Thank you.
And I'm very, I've got to compliment the staff. We had Jeremy and Paul with us at the committee meeting. It was really helpful. And we had a lot of material to go through, and it was, we did a lot of discussion. We basically came back to where we were before, but I say we basically affirmed the conclusions that we had come to earlier. Nate, do you want to add anything to that, or did that basically cover it?
That was perfect. I'm sure we'll discuss it more later, but that was a perfect introduction, Steve.
Okay, and I apologize to Nate because I almost called him Murnane and I meant to say Manette, and I clutched at the moment, you know.
No, I'm okay with that.
Okay, thank you. You're a good man.
Okay, if there are no other committee reports, we will move on to the treasurer's report. Any questions, comments, anything? Anyone would like to add, question?
I'll have some comments when we get to the EDC, but the IDA, there's
Oh, you don't want to add them now? Like
Hmm?
last time? Never mind.
usually I'm always talking out of turn with different organizations, but
Thumbs up emoji
I
here,
will
he
say-
remembered.
I will say that, I've in preparation for the year-end audit, I've already reconciled all of the general ledger accounts, specifically the balance sheet accounts. Everything's prepped and going to go. For the first time, we've always digitized the bank statements. Maria's always provided them to the accountant, but I actually, Maria, attached them today to QuickBooks.
Cool.
Yeah. So we're able to attach documents in the QuickBooks file, and our accountant's going to have access to QuickBooks. And so when they do the audit, the plan, we're going to make a big step forward this year, but next year we'll have even more documents attached. So that way the auditors won't have to be asking for this or asking for that or looking. They'll know that things are right attached. So if there's a journal entry, let's say, that I make, and they're trying to understand the reasoning behind it, an attachment can be made to it so that they have that explanation right there. So pretty exciting.
So this was just your adjustment, the New York State pension liability?
That's a year-end adjustment that the auditor provides, and it's actually, I know it says, is that the negative 43?
Mhm.
That's actually in our favor
Oh,
because it's in a liability account. So when you have a negative in the liability account, it's
that's to
it's
our benefit,
right.
yeah.
And it's the first
Okay.
time that that's happened in a while. usually what happens is New York State, in order to ensure that the pension fund is properly funded, they do an annual actuarial study. And they basically said, okay, you're 98% funded, the state. So you have to go out to all of the different municipalities and they have to recognize it on their books that they might get hit with a liability. If it's shut down and they had to pay out all the benefits, they would come to us and say, you got to cough up some extra money. So in 2022, they had such a good financial year because of their investments that it actually went the other way. It's overfunded. So if they had to shut things down, we'd actually, well, theoretically, we'd get some money back.
Yeah.
But I don't think we'd ever see it. But
Mhm.
so
Okay.
that's how it works.
Thank you. So I need a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
Steve will move.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so moved. Jeremy, CEO report.
Okay, had a couple things to bring up. First, I'm always amazed at all the work that goes on behind the scenes that gets us to where we need to be day to day, week to week, especially just even getting this meeting together. So I just want to express appreciation to Maria and Paul because it really is always a team effort. And sometimes it's good for me just to stop and remember that. And I think it's good for us all to remember that. So thank you to both of them. And likewise for the whole team, we started looking at what we think our priorities should be for 2024 as staff. And we're going to be doing that weekly now through December with the hope that we then come to the full board and have a discussion at our December meeting about what our 2024 goals and objectives look like. Any feedback that board members have before then are always welcome. But we started that yesterday as a group on our staff meeting. And again, it was really, to me, it was really useful. We got some great feedback from everybody. I really appreciate all of their input on it. They're all really engaged in it. And if you recall, we've been good for several years on setting out goals and objectives, but we don't usually get to them until January, February, or March. So this year we're trying to get ahead of the game. And so thanks to the team for indulging in that exercise, even though we have a lot of other year-end stuff going on. Like Madeline said, we're trying to get a governance committee meeting so we can have a new employee performance review process in place. And so I would suspect that's something that will come to the full board in December. And then finally, I just have to say, there's all these things that happen and that we have to do. And once in a while, it's good to point out details of what happens behind the scenes. We are trying to understand and eventually apply for funding to help with the cost of updating our comprehensive economic development strategy. If you recall, we applied for state funding and we're also going to seek federal funding. There's this new number that we have to have in order, like it's an ID number, to sign up to the website and create an account just so we can see what the application materials look like for this federal opportunity. It very well may be that we spend more staff time trying to get signed up for this thing than we would have if we just paid for the study out of pocket. But we've only gotten through one section, but it was quite the lift. And it's just one of those things that eats up time. And Maria took it on and tackled it. And she doesn't look like she has any additional gray hairs today, but it's just amazing the things that we have to do to stay in compliance and try to do the things that we want to do as an organization. And it just takes a lot of time and effort. And I just didn't want the day to go by without expressing that to you guys as a board, just to understand everything the team is doing. And in this case, we're not even halfway through it, but it's already been a big lift. And thank you, Maria, for that. In the meantime,
I just was gonna say, she's been working on it and everybody's been working on it for days, just for a simple ID number. It's just ridiculous. And she got, he drew the short straw, Maria. Sorry.
Yes. Really quick, just last thing is Rachel's expecting a couple applications for round 2 of Energize Uptown and Tupper Lake. Those are going to come in, I don't know if it's today or tomorrow. The review committee's meeting, I think, next week. And she's expecting several projects for review. And so in December, you'll see another round of recommendations. It may only be 1 or 2 projects because there's not a lot of funding left, but you'll see another round there. So she's anxiously engaged with that right now. That's my update.
Thank you. Do we have any old business? New business? We have all of our resolutions. So we need a motion to accept this. So resolution 2023-17, Bionique Testing Laboratories LLC initial project resolution. So we need a motion to bring it to the floor, right? Okay, need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Need a second?
I'll second. Steve Bowman.
Okay. Any discussion? Is that where we discuss it?
What was it, 2023-17?
Yeah,
You want to provide a little background on this, Sherry?
sure, go for it.
Shaking your head, yeah. So Bionique Testing Laboratories is located in Harrietstown, in the Harrietstown Business Park. I think they've been there about 20 years. And they have been going through a period of significant growth. They have far outpaced, or they've outgrown their building. And they've been planning an expansion for some time, and they're finally ready to do it. So I think it triples the size of the building. This project does. And so they've got a tight budget, but they're seeking assistance from the IDA for, a pilot and a sales tax exemption. And so they have submitted an application. We found it complete. And as a reminder, an initial resolution is simply identifying the project as eligible for IDA benefits and authorizing our council and myself to negotiate terms of proposed incentives. So that's what the initial resolution does. There's on the bottom of page 1 of the resolution and page 2, you can see how, at least in legal terms, the project is described. And it includes the construction, but also the fit out with equipment and furniture and all the things that go with both laboratory space and office space. So the next steps in the process, if the initial resolution is approved, is that I would work with them to look at their true financial needs and come up with a proposed pilot schedule, after which a public hearing would be scheduled that would be held in the town of Harrietstown. And then at some point after that, an authorizing resolution could be considered by the board.
If I could add something in terms of background, just for folks who may not know Bionique, I was at the park agency when it approved the project for the Harrietstown Business Park. It was founded by Dan Lundeen, who I believe had been at the Cell Science Center. The company makes a neutral medium for cell cultures. And it basically sends this out to labs, and it's part of their research process. Basically, it's all very sterile environment necessary for biotech research. And when Dan basically aged out and wanted to sell the company, when it was purchased, as a bystander, long retired from the park agency, I was concerned that basically the company could end up relocating out of the area, which would be a real loss to our economy. And the fact that they're actually staying and not just buying it and moving it somewhere else, and that they're actually expanding and committing to expansion in Franklin County is a real positive. And I think this shows the capabilities and potential of the IDA to support local businesses as they decide to grow out here. It shows us in our best way. So I fully support this and would urge everyone else to also.
Thank you. Maria, I think, roll call?
Okay, this is for 2023-17 for Bionique. Sherry Boye,
Yes.
James Ellis is absent. Stephen Ehrman,
Yes.
Madeline Fleury,
Yes.
Archie McKee is absent. Daniel Mills,
Yes.
Nate Manette,
Yes.
duly adopted.
Thank you. Now we need a motion for resolution 2023-18, authorizing execution of purchase contract for Bombay Factory.
Make the motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any questions? We went over this ahead of time. Purchase offer price $375 in order to manufacture building panels. There's no questions, anybody? You can,
Any expectation on closing date, or is it gonna happen this year? Anybody know?
I think, Jeremy, don't you think it'll happen
probably not.
after?
It'll probably happen after the new year. I mean, the purchase contract says 30 days, but there's a lot of contingencies that both parties have to figure out, which will likely push it off into the new year.
Is it, I know we did that, paid for that big inspection and all of that. Are they gonna do anything with that? Like, are they going to try and get reduction of price or anything like that because of the amount of work that needs to be done, or?
That's already
This
been
is-
factored into it.
Oh,
This is an as-is purchase.
okay, all right.
Yeah. And they were provided the engineering reports.
So they are planning to do improvements, upgrades, renovations, some over the short term and some longer term. And we don't know exactly the extent, but they will likely be coming to us for IDA incentives to assist with that, because as you know, they could be extensive. So, but they're fully aware, they're fully committed, and it is an as-is purchase contract.
Maria?
Okay, 2023-18 purchase contract for Bombay. Sherry Boye,
Yes.
James Ellis is absent. Stephen Ehrman,
Yes.
Madeline Fleury,
Yes.
Archie McKee is absent. Daniel Mills,
Yes.
Nate Manette,
Yes.
duly adopted.
Next is resolution 2023-19. And that is authorizing execution of contract for tree removal. that is for Earth in Motion to complete the work for a cost not to exceed $6,500. And that is at the water tower. Any discussion?
Needs to be a motion to bring it to the.
Oh, I'm sorry, we need a motion to bring it to the table. I was doing
I'll make
so
a
well.
motion. You are doing good.
We need a second?
Steve?
Steve? Any further discussion on it? Questions? I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
We do what we gotta do. I guess we do roll call now.
Okay, 2023-19, tree removal at the water tower. Sherry Boye,
Sure, yes.
James Ellis is absent. Stephen Erman,
Yes.
Madeline Flurry,
Yes.
Archie McKee is absent. Daniel Mills.
Yes.
Nate Manette,
Yes.
duly adopted.
Right, yeah, exactly.
For the water.
Good.
Here.
The water. Okay, next, sorry. Need a motion, 2023-20, authorizing execution of lease terms with Harrison Place CAI Limited.
I'll make the motion.
Nate,
No? Nate moved.
Yep.
Steve will second.
okay.
My only question was, it says commercial space 5, is that, it doesn't, you were talking about second floor, is it now first floor?
Yeah, this is the new building. The second floor I was talking about was if we approach the village of Malone to use their space, which is an older building. But this is the new building happening on Main Street. And one of the things that we really liked about this is, you know, we're trying to project an image of a very professional organization, the IDA, EDC, which we are. And this really puts us in a prominent location right in the center of town. And it's accessible, it's high quality. We've already been through the interior design of it. We started with an arrangement by which we would have had to pay for interior improvements. The cost was too high for us. That was all renegotiated, and ARC, Citizens Advocates, right? Citizens Advocates has been very accommodating to us and brought us to a point where it's seen by the committee and our staff as very affordable. And it's really going to put us in a position where we can build for the future. One of the concerns that I had when it was presented to the committee was the term, which when the revised terms came back to us was for 10 years. I thought that was too long, and it was beyond probably the tenure of most of us on this board. Jeremy did go back to them, and they now are talking about 5-year term for the lease with opportunities for 5-year renewals after that. And that was seen by all of us as very reasonable. And so I would suggest we move forward on this, but it's all up for the discussion of the board. I think this really gives us a very high quality and attractive centerpiece in Malone, and since Malone is a county seat in Franklin County, very important.
I agree. Did we take into, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't have a huge opportunity to look at all the expenses. Did we take into consideration marketing costs? Because obviously we will have to advertise what we could do there, you know, businesses using it for conferences and meetings, and so that people know we're there.
Mhm.
Just a thought.
I think that would be part of Jeremy's regular annual marketing budget, correct, Jeremy?
Yeah, is if and when we use it as a co-working space, Sherry, that's what you're talking about, getting the word out about that. Yeah,
Like we're using the one in Saranac Lake.
right.
That's how we make our revenue.
Right.
Break even, hopefully.
Right.
Do you market quite a bit for the one in Saranac Lake?
I
It-
think
not a
I don't
lot.
think we at this point,
Yeah.
not really.
Yeah. And there's been different reasons for that over the years, but we're gonna do more of it, but it's not a huge expense. And Paul is right. That can be accommodated in our existing EDC marketing budget.
So what is the plan then for the co-working space? Is it like, when do you project that being put in place?
They have said that we could occupy it on or around March 1st. And right, it was March 1st. Yeah, so that's 3 months. How many months is that? 2 months in the calendar year
It's about
to start
4 months out,
to really figure out
5 months out.
what our schedule can be for rolling it out. I mean, I think first we quite frankly haven't discussed that detail a ton yet, but I think we want to make sure we've got it, that we're occupying it, that we've got furniture, and that we've got the bases covered for being in a new space, and then start rolling out the co-working option. So I don't have any details beyond that at this point. I mean, the good thing is we do know there's a lot that we've learned with a carry that we will be able to use to get going faster in the road.
We think there'll be demand for that space, co-working space in Malone, but the committee has agreed that having that co-working space in place at the moment we moved in is not critical. It's desirable. And I think it could be set up in a fairly quick order, at least to have some desks there where folks can move. We can actually build it larger as as demand requires, I would think, in terms of amount of furniture we put in. Is that right, Jeremy?
Yeah, but we'll hopefully we're still, one of the variables is the grant that we submitted for furniture, the ESD capital grant.
Yeah.
Which I would presume we'll know the results of that by our next meeting.
Right.
It's usually late November, early December that they make those awards.
We're planning on having, if we do this, we'll have our March meeting in that building. The way it looks, which will be terrific.
So Madeline had a question. The grant it's a 50% share, right, on the furniture? Cost share, Jeremy, on the grant?
Yes. But we didn't, I don't think we actually showed a 50% match on the budget. I don't recall exactly. I could look it up.
So, physically within the location, there isn't really anything that's going to have to be done construction wise, because it's really being designed for that open space. It's just a matter of the lead time on the cubicles or the desks and when we can get them in there. But if we know that it's going to be, a firm, as we get closer, they'll be able to firm up the date, and then we'll figure out what the lead times are on the furniture and things like that.
So are all the cubicles, are those like a freestanding modular type setup where you
Pretty
can
much move around.
They may be as simple as movable on wheels panels. I don't even plan to do cubicles. It may just be a few movable panels that you could make as a square or in a row. It's really meant to be pretty open space.
And that's how the carry in Saranac Lake is currently set up. You could, in an afternoon, you could rearrange the entire carry just by moving some of these panels and desks around and just doing a reconfiguration. So
so for board members, did we ever share with you kind of what we thought the furniture inventory should look like for that space? No, from what it sounds like, no. I'll send that around. Kelly did an analysis of what would work, what we think we would need for that space, and that's how we built the budget for the grant. So I'll send that around just so everybody has it.
Thank you.
So I guess my only concern with this, which I've voiced before, and I know I don't even want to hear it, but I'm going to say it anyway, is I have a problem with the fact that it's going to be an empty space a majority of the time. And it seems like a big expense, and I understand the vision. It's not that I'm short-sighted, I get the vision, but sometimes the vision is a little more costly than what you need to be doing. So I have a problem, because I think visually, when you have an empty space with maybe your sign out there, that's just as bad as having to go to the courthouse on the 3rd floor and being in a closet office space, in my opinion. So I don't know. I will say it now. I'm not really in favor of this, and I think I've said it before. I think it's a stretch. I understand we need an office space, but
If we're going to get an office space, there should be people in it daily.
yeah, that's
Basically.
exactly.
I know we
I
went to
think you
remote,
should have
right.
that public image that there's people there, because how does it look when somebody walks by and they want to talk to somebody and the place is locked up and there's nobody there? Which is going to be probably 3 days or more a week. So that's my opinion. That's how I feel about it. So
So for instance, have posted office hours regularly so that people know when you're there.
What I'm
So how would it
thinking, go ahead, Nate, I'm sorry.
So how does it work in the carry if nobody's there? Is somebody able to use that space?
Mhm.
Yes.
But that's because it's already set up as how
Right.
were you calling it? Co-working. This isn't going to be set up that way at first.
Within a couple months.
My thought is that there's a
Present so that they can
all
come in and
businesses,
set it up that way.
not-for-profits as well as businesses, a major question about how you staff offices. And, that's another matter that we have to come to terms on, if everybody's gonna be working in the office, or if there's gonna be somebody in the office at all times, or staff will be split, however that's worked. A lot of organizations are going to, 3 days a week in the office, 2 days at home. I don't know if that's desirable, whatever Jeremy as CEO decides, working with the staff is the best way to move forward. But I see that building, once we acquire it, having some staff, somebody in that office during business hours. And if we are successful at marketing, we should be able to attract a few entrepreneurs, people who, want to be able to work outside of their homes in an office setting, but not want to bear the cost of having to rent or lease a whole office for themselves, who would want to be in there, similar to what we have here at the Carry. When I walked in here at about 1:45, there were about 4 or 5 people working at the Carrolls in the Carry here. So I'd say this is a mature facility at some point, at this point. And that was the number that was here. The place looks occupied. It doesn't look empty. And I would expect after a certain amount of marketing time in Malone and having people be aware of what we have up there, that we'll start acquiring some tenants, which would be great in terms of revenue, as also, as Madeline said, showing that, it's a kind of an active, vital place for economic development. Important.
I think my main issue is that if you're calling it the headquarters, but your headquarters has no people there.
Right.
That's my issue. I understand that the co-working space, yeah, eventually there'll be people in there, but as a headquarters, as you like to call it, and it's not staffed I'm not going to say fully, but staffed by a person or somebody's not there, at least somebody representing the organization during all the business hours that you post. I mean, if that's, if you're trying to be visible in the community, that people see you, how does it feel if somebody, like I say, goes to the door, nobody there? They go the next day, look, nobody's there. I mean, to me, it's a turnoff.
Yeah, it's a good point.
That's all. That's my main reason why I really am not in favor of this, because I don't like the whole staffing arrangement that, I understand remote working is a great thing. It's very flexible, and I'm all for that too. But I think, you got to balance it out if you're going to invest in a space like this and try and be the face of the community where, you're trying to help them. And,
So maybe that's where you come into play, Jeremy, and you get creative with the staffing schedule, so there is someone there every day.
So we have consistency, like you said,
Exactly.
post office hours and be
Before
consistent.
COVID, when it was at Community Bank, I mean, Maria was in the office every day, and whether it was Jeremy or whoever else was there, someone was there. I mean, I know the world has changed, but that doesn't mean it has to stay that way. We need that consistency. So you know, you're the CEO, so we depend on you to make sure it's manned daily. Posted the hours, have a body there.
I think those are excellent points, frankly, and, you know, if we just looked at how we're currently operating, we're in the, not to be crude, we're in the bowels of the county office building right now, in space which really is undesirable. And the fact that we have to have a board meeting at the Holiday Inn Express instead of being in our own space, I think sends not a very good image out, frankly, to the community about the organization. I feel like we're somewhat homeless in Malone, even though we're an organization that's been in place for decades. And that's really a goal, to change that around. And Madeline's point about having a physical presence that people see is really important. But I think we need to show ourselves in a much better way than we do now.
Well, I mean, just to make another point is that that's the reason why you lost the space in the courthouse that you had, is because there wasn't people there, and the legislators grabbed a hold of that. It's vacant space and they want it. So therefore you got pushed out to a closet space. So, and that was one of the complaints that I think that they had kept voicing, is that there's nobody here. There's never anybody here. We go to the door's locked. So
that was COVID partly too. That was a.
I know there was other things going on there, but I'm just saying that's things that I heard. So
yeah, that was a casualty of COVID, because I know all the other times we were there all the time prior to people having to work from home just to be able to maintain isolation.
Yeah, but after that, I mean, we can use that crutch as long as we want, but
Exactly.
I went back to the bank, you went back to work, you know what I'm saying? Everybody else went back to their office, so you can use it so long.
Yeah.
So we just kind of need to get back and be visible and present. And if
on
we're going
a
to invest
flexible
this money,
schedule.
and if we're going to invest this kind of money, then we need to make that happen.
Right.
That's the
I
bottom line.
agree. I agree with that.
Good point. Good point.
All helpful.
Okay. So now do we do a roll call, or are we going,
Discussion is done.
if discussion is done?
Okay, 2023-20 lease terms with Harrison Place. Sherry Boye.
Can I add something
Yes.
before we do this?
So discussion was not done.
Sorry, discussion's not done.
You're the
So,
chair.
so if we are going to move on this, should we put something else in writing, or, I mean, we had this discussion, so, but as a board, I mean, this is in notes, but should we have something
More
part
detailed in the
of this in
resolution.
more detail, that we do have regular hours there,
Well,
that there is someone in the office at all
I
times?
think that's something we should rediscuss and handle separately versus this particular item on its own. Because
Okay,
this is just the agreement to move into the space. What
But I'm
we've been
not-
discussing is valid, but it should be handled as a separate item.
but I
This
mean,
is for a lease agreement, basically.
correct, but
Right.
to me, okay, so we're gonna lease it before we agree on how we're going to
But
staff
could we-
it.
Could I make a suggestion, Sherry?
Sure,
What about if the board, since we did as a committee we revisited the whole question of what our strategy is, could we get a resolution from the board basically accepting what the committee concluded? So people agreed with that? That would be good, I think. And then
I mean,
we could say that for the Malone headquarters office, because that's all included in this memo that Jeremy had prepared, summarizing the meeting, that would say for the Malone office, the board feels that it's very important that in maintaining a very visible office, that there's a continuing staff presence during business hours? Could we do that in a
Yeah.
whole separate resolution, and then we move on to the lease?
Yes, that's what I was basically saying.
Next meeting, that'll be the first, or have that be a
So
resolution.
could governance discuss that in their meeting this next week with the employee evaluation process and make a recommendation?
So you're saying move forward with this one and then add that, or do those two at the same time?
I don't know, you know, my thought would be that a simple resolution saying that the board considered the findings of the Economic Development Committee and basically agrees that this should be our way forward. And secondly, that in maintaining an office space, a central office space in Malone, that having a staff presence in that office is during business hours is important.
I just, in some of the conversation, I don't know if you heard everything here. I think to try to iron out the hours and schedules and all that on the fly right here and now isn't really an appropriate way to do it. I think that should go to the governance committee that was just suggested here by somebody for mapping out how we're going to staff Harrison Place. What's in front of everybody right now is basically the approval or process of approving entering into an agreement for leasing that space. I don't think you can tie the two of them together in a single resolution.
Well, and I mean, this was a really good discussion, and you guys, you've given me your feelings as board members. It's my job to take those back and figure out how to implement operations in accordance with your feelings and our policies. And yeah, to try to nail that down today, I wouldn't be comfortable with that.
What I would suggest,
So-
though, and this is a little bit of amendment based on Paul's statement, Jeremy's statement. I think doing this in the proper steps. Last month, we talked about a need to revisit the strategy. The committee met and said the strategy we had before basically is the strategy. We reemphasize the importance of high quality space in Malone and the importance of having an office in Tupper and an office in Saranac Lake with carries to happen as demand showed itself, something like that. And to have the board, after the work of the committee, sign on to that strategy again, as it did earlier, I think would be helpful. And I think in that same resolution, we could say that in the Malone, in having the central office in Malone, and I'll change the words that I used before, having a significant staff presence during working hours is viewed as important. And you know, it leaves us, the governance committee, to define what it sees as significant. That may be a person in the office so the door is never locked, or it may mean, you know, 2 or 3 people at a time, or it may mean the entire staff. But that's all something for staff to work out and in coordination with the governance committee. Does that make sense?
Well,
What's he saying?
there's a difference between policy and procedure. And I just don't want to, I don't think any of us should commit to doing something without thinking through this.
Okay.
There's no point in any of it if we don't have a building that we're going to move into.
Okay. Then we
Right?
should,
Like that's been the priority. It's taken a lot of energy by a lot of people to get to this point where we've got a great opportunity, and the committee said, this is the opportunity we want to take. So if this moves forward, it's then incumbent upon me and the staff to figure out how to use this space wisely
okay.
and operate it and take into account the good comments and discussion that we've heard. So I feel like if in a couple of months you guys aren't getting good feedback and answers from us on how we're going to how we're going to do that, then you should call me
Okay.
out on it. But
And what-
until then, give us some time to take what we've heard and
Okay. And I'm good with that. What about the idea, though, of saying that the board basically concurs with the conclusions of the committee in terms of it's the strategy to locate in the three core communities in Franklin County, something
as a
like that,
separate resolution or
as a separate resolution. And that at least says the committee did its work, the board agrees with it, and it lays a basis for us then to approve a lease with Harrison Place. How it's staffed is something to be worked out between with Jeremy and the staff with the recommendation of the governance committee.
you
Does that make
certainly,
sense?
if
So,
you could do
so
that.
I think, right now, we vote on this one. And then, like you said, we have a further discussion after the fact
I agree.
on the staffing. You know, Jeremy, like I said, you know, you're the
Let's not muddy the
CEO,
waters.
you
Right.
do the scheduling, et cetera, et cetera. You know what we want, and we move forward.
Yes.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay, roll
That's
call.
fine.
2023-10, 20, lease terms with Harrison Place. Sherry Boye,
Yes.
James Ellis is absent. Stephen Erman,
Yes.
Madeline Flurry,
No.
Archie McKee is absent. Daniel Mills,
Yes.
Nate Manette,
Yes.
and it is duly adopted.
Okay. And now we do have executive session on the agenda, so I need a motion to go into executive session. I don't. Do we need to discuss what it's about?
For the purpose, yep.
For the purpose
For
of,
the-
Jeremy?
It's for the proposed sale lease of property.
Okay. Any motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
So moved. Oh, I just pulled this. I did, man. Whoopsie. Did he take us out? Do you have to hit a button?
Oh.
Them getting to know.
Are we live? Yeah, okay.
We live?
So
Yep.
next week.
We're good.
We just need a motion to adjourn the IDA meeting.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
We're all in favor?
We even have a third for that one.